Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Hands on Business podcast. I hope you've all been enjoying what you've been listening to so far over the past few weeks. And don't forget to shoot me your feedback, because as one of my old bosses used to say, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So keep it coming. Yeah, he did actually say that. So today we're going to be discussing how to create a high performance culture and a lot of other things too. And to help me do that today, I'm joined by Veronica Safoa Owusu. She's going to correct my pronunciation, no doubt.
Listen, Hakeem, you did a wonderful job in that pronunciation.
Okay, well, I'll try and improve it even better next time. So Veronica has many strings to her bow, and we're obviously going to get into a few of those over the next 50 minutes to an hour. But just to name a few, she's got a master's degree in educational sciences, 10 years experience working as an educator, which means she's created hundreds and hundreds of lesson plans, courses, designed dozens of program development schemes that have helped achieve targeted skills in students and adults, which I would say is the perfect background for them moving into managing her own business, which she does, and becoming a deep dive mindset coach and mindset strategist, to name just a few things she does. But in addition to that, anyone who's on LinkedIn may well have seen Veronica dancing in her very engaging videos, which she posts very regularly to put a point across. And that's actually how we met. I saw one of the videos and I reached out to her. So welcome, Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hakeem. Yes, I like the whole expression of a deep dive, because that's where really creation starts, personally and professionally. And like you said, being an educator for over 10 years back in Poland, having that rigid system of course creation, now I help other upcoming coaches and consultants create their own online transformational courses so that they can in turn have an impact within their tribe. So using what I call the gold dust that we all have and structuring that into a golden nugget and gifting it to the world in service with a structure, with a process, with a roadmap is really the most fulfilling thing that I've ever experienced.
Oh, well, there we go, you see. So Veronica's obviously said in about 2 sentences everything I was going to ask her about. So looks like pretty much we're going to stop the conversation there. But no, don't worry. She's given a nice little bits of snippets, which allows you to understand exactly what she does. And we're going to get deeper into that. But before we go on to that, you mentioned about, obviously, a lot of your educational work was done in Poland. You grew up in Ghana. So just tell us a bit about how that, because I don't know that many people who grew up in Ghana and went to Poland. So just talk about that story.
Oh boy. So it started off when this young Ghanaian man had a scholarship to travel to Poland and further his education in engineering, where he fell in love with this beautiful blonde Polish woman, a teacher herself. And she was his Polish teacher and he was her English teacher. My mom and my dad, of course, later on, many years later on, that's when I was born. So that's where the story started. And my mom was only 22 years old when she moved from communist Poland with closed borders and very kind of limited perceptions of the outer world. Only 22, adventurous as she was, courageous, traveled to Ghana. She left everything and followed her heart. And she has been living in Ghana for the past 53 years.
Unbelievable. A beautiful story. And so it must have been a bit of a culture shock for her, because Ghana's very different than Poland.
It started even further, Hakeem, when she was a little girl and she read an adventure book about Africa and how the adventures in the jungle, and how this 2 children were kidnapped, but then they were saved by some tribal people and they took them through the jungle. And she's like, I want to go there. Well, as a little girl herself, she was so fascinated by that concept. So yes, there was a cultural shock, but my mom is a very flexible individual. She can adjust, she can adapt, and now I'm like, she's a Polish Ghanaian.
And she's obviously passed that flexibility on to you. So obviously you're in Poland. What do you think is the most important thing that you learned? Because you obviously done a lot of teaching there, a lot of educating. Yes. What's the main thing that you think you learned there that you brought forward until today?
You know, in Poland back then, it was quite a closed community. So I was pretty much the only Black person in the whole university. So that really opened my kind of viewpoint on how to integrate, how to adjust, how to not fit in, but how to also communicate effectively and find your people, find your tribe. The girls that were pretty much open to me and receptive to me, I was able to also, be myself and just attract whoever wanted to know me, because it was only a girls, not that was only a girls university, but there were only girls there.
Oh, right,
Teaching is such a faculty that you have mainly girls or ladies or women. So I learned definitely to adjust as well and be flexible, and just by being myself, attracting the kind of people that want to be in my energy field. So that's one thing that I've learned, to be in an environment which wasn't necessarily created for you.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that's obviously you brought that through into the work that you do now, and obviously one of the things that you describe yourself as a deep dive mindset coach. I just want to explore that a bit more. So, how do you define mindset then?
Right. So the deep dive mindset experience is from the concept that creation happens twice.
Oh,
Okay, we live in two worlds, Hakeem, all right, or even more. After all, we're multidimensional. But when I mean two worlds, I mean the inner world and the outer world. And creation always, always happens twice. Just like, gravity is a principle of nature, creation also happens twice, and that is a principle. And creation always, first and foremost, happens within our thoughts, within our feelings, within our imagination, and what we can create in our mind's eye within, in the world within. So a deep dive is really diving into that world of beliefs, the warehouse of forgotten stories, where the cobwebs have piled up and the dust is everywhere, in the forgotten land of creation, where things are now just running on autopilot or on default mode. And we're unconsciously creating an outer experience of frustration, of stress, of lack of confidence. And you wonder why. Why do I lack that confidence? Why don't I believe in myself? Or why am I continuously creating this pattern in my life or in my profession, always losing money or always ending up in the wrong relationship, or always ending up in very conflict in these kind of conflicting environments? Like, what's going on? Well, what's going on? I want to know what's going on within. I want to dive deep.
The type of mindset that you're looking at, because obviously you're trying to improve people's mindset and the way they behave and the way they think. So is it as simple as saying that there is a successful mindset that you're trying to get to, or is it more complicated than that?
So what is a successful mindset in the first place, right?
Exactly.
It's all we all define that differently. So pretty much it's all about creating an experience that is fulfilling, satisfying, brings you peace and brings you joy. That is the ultimate goal, or the ultimate experience that the soul wants to have. In that inner world, we talk about the soul. This is, it has to experience itself. And it experiences itself through the actions we take. Right? So for it to experience joy, for it to experience fulfillment, right? It has to do the things that it loves. So if you do not know what you want, if you do not know what your values are, if you ignore that and you just are on default mode and you ignore that voice or that intuition, we start living a life in misalignment. Frustration, stress, these are not natural states of being, Hakeem. We have come to accept that, oh yes, it's normal to be stressed out. Actually, stress is very good. Maybe we can justify that in many ways. But that is not the natural state of the human being.
So,
And
so in terms of a successful mindset, what you're effectively saying is that obviously there is a state of success, but it'll be different for different people.
yes, success is a state of being. Too often we associate a success with, of course, the material world. And yeah, absolutely, it does play a role. We are actually in the physical three-dimensional world. So yes, it does play a role. But ultimately, success is a state of being, a state of satisfaction, fulfillment, of joy, of peace, of alignment, of expansion, of greatness, all these states.
Can that state be developed? Or is it you're born with one mindset and that's it? Well, there's nothing I can do. This is the way I am.
Well, studies show that some are more tuned with the amount of happiness that they can experience. There's this study that says some people are born less happy.
Yeah.
But the truth and the good news is that it can always evolve. It can always develop. We can always choose. Some people may find it slightly easier, but some people may find it slightly challenging. But the good news is it is doable. It is a skill, and all skills, as we know, are learnable.
I'm just going to say, I always find it interesting. I wrote a post ages ago that every time I go back to Nigeria, obviously there's lots of affluent areas in Nigeria, but there's lots of non-affluent areas in Nigeria. But the one thing that I've always noticed is that everyone's got a smile on the face. Whereas I come back to England, where you'd say, well, actually, generally, if you're looking at the level of standard of living, everybody's got a TV, a house, and the basic necessities. But you get lots of people who are frowning and don't feel very happy, and we're always complaining about the weather. Whereas I go back to Nigeria, and even the people in the most dire of circumstances seem to be able to find positivity in the situation they're in.
And that comes from the energy of gratitude. Okay, gratitude is an energy, right? And it's a feeling, and all feelings are just vibrational states of being. It's just an energy flowing through your body that gives you the sensation. So gratitude, yes, being grateful for what we have, for the little, for the or whatever much or however much we have, and functioning from that space of gratitude allows us to enjoy what we have more. So, of course, having more smiles on our faces and just enjoying the things that surround us. Because you know what? I'm from Ghana, and I can totally relate to the smiles. When, you know what? Abundance surrounds those people. What do I mean? The sun shines, they're receiving that warmth, that they have all that they need around them. If you're in my father's village, for example, yes, you may say that life looks tough, but there's abundance everywhere. There's so much of everything that nature has. So they're grateful for those little things. That does not mean that there are some difficulties and some challenges that makes life slightly more challenging in some areas. But ultimately, that doesn't prevent them from being happy. That is the missing link. It doesn't prevent them. It's not a condition. And here in the West, we are conditioned.
And it's interesting because I have this conversation with my children all the time, because it's like they have lots of things, and actually they are quite generally happy, but they moan about things, which we all do. And I think, how can you moan about it? It's such a tiny little thing, like, oh, I wasn't allowed a chocolate bar today. You're thinking, is that really a hardship? And I can't remember, I think it's Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it's about, and it is about exactly, you're talking about that gratitude, that understanding that actually you can change your mindset. You can decide when you wake up, I'm actually going to have a good day today.
Yes.
And surprise, you tend to have a good day. Or you can get up and say, oh, it's horrible, everything's against me. And surprise, you have a bad day. So we've agreed that we can actually develop that success, and that's obviously one of the things you do. So whenever I do podcasts, people are constantly asking me, I need examples. How does this work in reality? So I just wanted to ask you, have you got any real life examples of where people weren't where necessarily you thought they should be, and how you then work with them, and then they got the right mindset, and how did that work? How did they move on?
Absolutely. So yeah, I can give an example. So one client, she actually was a speaker, an author, really an established entrepreneur, right? And somewhere in that journey, she stumbled and she lost everything. Even that was actually during the COVID period, about a year ago. And because she was no longer having those speaking gigs, these events that she was attending, or these functions that she had to go to, everything kind of just flopped and dropped, and there was nothing. So what happened was she was totally devastated by all that loss. So she lost her confidence because she really felt that she had lost everything that she had identified herself with. And this is the issue. When we don't know who we are beyond the labels and we lose them because of some circumstances, the lack of confidence and the self-esteem drives us to this very dark space that we're not good enough, that we cannot rebuild what we lost because the loss was so huge, so immersed. Not only did you lose your finances, but you lost people around you. So you're left with nothing, and that leaves you in a very dark space. So what we had to do was really dive deep into the essence of who she was. I took her through this visualization exercise where she literally experienced the energy that she was made up of, allowing her to expand within the boundaries of her body, expand beyond the boundaries of the wall. And that visualization exercise, that's just one of them, made her realize that, wow, she was made up of this pure vibrational energy, this expansive thing that could expand beyond the boundaries of anything, limitless. Experiencing that broke through something within her, because that week was really transformational for her. She started picking up, on her good habits and started doing things, starting taking responsibility for certain tasks that she had left behind and kind of procrastinated and didn't want to even look at because she felt that, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out again? That trauma had left this scar that she could not kind of break through on her own. So that really helped her, and that expansion, and things started really rolling, and she started getting back on track with her assignments, with her tasks, with connecting, networking, and creating more opportunities for herself. So the fear of success was a big thing for her, and that's just one example. Who are we when we lose everything that we ever identified ourselves with? What is left of you?
So is that about valuing yourself?
It's about knowing who you are.
Yeah, and being comfortable in that essence, effectively.
Absolutely. The truth is, if you lose everything today, if you know the truth of who you are, you know that you can recreate it because you know what you're made of. You know that you're pure vibrational energy. Energy is creative. So where your energy goes, creation will flow. Another universal principle.
Yeah.
So knowing that for a fact, now where is it that I want to focus my energy on? Deciding on what I want. Okay, what do I truly deeply want? What do I want to create in life? What difference do I want to make? What change do I want to see? Okay, and also identifying, okay, so who do I want to see that change in, right? Finding the people that you want to serve and focusing your solutions and creating solutions that address those things. I'm talking in my case about the people that I work with, right? And creating, because we create solutions.
Yeah.
In other words, online training courses are solutions to specific urgent needs that their tribe have at that particular point. So yeah, that's just a little example. Another example, one lady that I coached, she kept on losing finances. She'd make it and then she'd lose it. She'd make it and then she'd lose it again. And this was a reoccurring pattern. And wherever there's a pattern, look at it in your life personally, in your relationships, at work, in your business. If there's a reoccurring pattern, there is a hidden blind spot right there. It's like in your face. Many people are not aware of it. They just go like, why is this always happening to me? Why do I keep on losing this? Why do I keep on meeting such people? Why do I keep on landing in such jobs or having such bosses or whatever the case is? There is a hidden blind spot. Well, cutting a long story short, we went back into her childhood, and that it seemed, as her being the oldest child, she was giving her lots of responsibilities. And she was always the one who looked up to. She was the one, as she grew into a young lady working, always had to see to the other siblings, had to help financially, especially her parents and her siblings and her family. She was always the one who was solving the problems in the family, especially the financial ones. Again, finances. So she felt very much responsible, but whenever she didn't have that money, people kind of turned their backs on her, right? They were not looking up to her anymore. They were not really there when she wanted them because she didn't have what they needed. So what it turned out that experience, money, was a tool to buy love. It was a tool to buy respect. It was a tool to buy acknowledgement and worth and value. So when she had that, she felt validated. But then everybody would want something from her, and then she'd get frustrated again. And then she'd say, oh boy, I have enough of this. And she'd lose it just to have the peace. But then she'd have to gain it again just so that she had that validation. So it was an on and off thing. So that was something that we had to deal with, and really, again, to the core of who you are and how you value yourself and how you respect yourself and how you see yourself is always a starting point.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And obviously, the things that you're doing with your clients are invaluable in terms of helping them realize who they are and actually move forward. And so is there a way of putting that into a team environment to create high performance cultures and get teams moving? Obviously, it's very much about an individual, and the team is made up of individuals, obviously. So yeah, just on that.
Absolutely. It all boils down to the soul of the team. Each team has a soul. So if we're, applying the principles into a team setting, what is the soul of the team? Is it of oneness? Is there a common theme, a common vision, right? Is there a unity within that team? And who are we as a team? Have we identified that? Creating that team, have we agreed on who are we as a team and what do we want as a team? And how are we going to do that as a team? So that oneness is very much a constant issue within team settings. There is no unity, there's no oneness, there's no common direction. So it is up to really the manager or the team leader to bring them together and really find that common ground where they feel as one. They feel as, it's like each team member is a moving part in the vehicle, right? And that moves the vehicle forward, and they're all in alignment. So when I'm turning the chains here, and you are turning that wheel, and we're moving in the same pace and the same style, the same rhythm as we move forward.
Do you see that in many businesses, that not the overall company, but actually different teams have a vision, or that they have that drive and common purpose?
Well, it's a missing link in many organizations, right? And it is something that is being worked on. I feel that there is a change that is happening in the world today. People are becoming more aware of all these conscious leaders. I call them conscious leaders, the enlightened leader. We need more enlightened leaders in our organizations, those that know who they are. They know the principles that govern, how people function, even the universe, and how people think. So they know who they are. So now, having that awareness and that enlightenment, they can now shed light onto the team so that they too can learn those principles and apply them into how they function as one. So more enlightened leaders is what we need. And that means diving deep into transcending into the different layers or the deeper layers of who they are as people.
I was very fortunate, probably, I don't know, it's probably about 20 years ago. I had a boss, and the reason why I asked the question about do we see that in many businesses, because I don't see it in many businesses, and my boss back then told me that you need to, whenever you move into a company, it doesn't matter what the vision is, you have to understand the vision, but you should have a vision if you're a manager for your team. And that used to be like the first thing I'd do whenever I went into a new company, got a new team. People used to look at me quite strange because it was quite some time ago, and I'd say, right, we need to develop a team identity, ethos, a vision, and we need to sit around and do it together, as opposed to me coming and saying, this is what we want to do in this team. How do we develop that together? And that always led to a much better and a much more rapid level of performance, because people felt engaged. And the other bit of advice he gave me, which is similar to what you just said actually, but he was a big football fan, so he said, look at your team, the football team. They're not all the same. You have strikers, you have defenders, you have midfielders, you have goalkeepers. They've all got different skills, but you need all of them if you want to deliver the team. And I really took those lessons to heart, which is very similar to what you just said there.
You see, the problem with organizations is they work from a very external space of being. Like, there's this lack of humanity within organizations. It feels very external. They forget about the inner world. They're trying to create everything from the external stuff, right? And to make it work. And maybe, yes, you will get results, but ultimately, is that sustainable if you do not look into the inner world of your people and humanize processes, humanize the whole experience of your team? They say humanize the workplace. There's this slogan that's everywhere: humanize the workplace, because too often it's an external experience where people are treated just as numbers, as statistics, as just an employee, and not looked from a perspective of being a human being with emotions and the baggage of their own personally, and how that's affecting your performance. That's why we need leaders that are enlightened, and they have the empathy and the compassion and the understanding and the capacity to contain that baggage that somebody may have and how to deal with that. So they have to have the capacity to contain that as well, because they also have their own.
But interestingly enough, I see a lot of leaders who aren't like that, yet still seem to gain success. So how do we square off that circle?
So let me ask you, what kind of success? What do you mean by success?
Good point. So financial success.
Okay.
They move from company to company, get bigger jobs, CEOs.
Great.
Business is good, and then they move on.
Perfect. That's why I have, a lawyer reach out to me and saying, Veronica, I'm not motivated. I'm depressed. I'm sad.
Yeah.
Okay? So what is success? Hey, if you can align your essence of who you are, your values, and how you, what matters most to you with your path forward and upward, great. Of course, it happens. There are people like that who are really successful on a holistic level. Okay, so it's just about identifying what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're willing not to, and if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, actually, because I think that lots of people, you see these LinkedIn posts, and it's all about get up at 2:00 in the morning, work 25 hours, don't sleep, don't do that, and you'll be like Steve Jobs. And you're like, yeah, but to be fair, I think Steve Jobs actually was following his passion. He wasn't just doing something with computers and tech because he could make money at it. He actually turned the passion into a very successful business. And I don't know him personally. I don't know, how he lived his life. But I think that, as you're saying there, it's about what are you prepared to sacrifice for that success, and how do you define success? Yeah. Because actually, I asked that question because I know that people will be asking me, oh yeah, it's all well and good, doing all this stuff, but he doesn't do it, and look how successful he is. And I think it is a critical point to understand, well, what are you prepared to sacrifice, and how do you define success? Because just making loads of money, there's lots of people make loads of money, and as you said, they're not happy. And there's lots of people who don't make as much money, but they're completely fulfilled because they're doing what they know they should be doing, and they're doing what they feel they're put on earth to do, and therefore that delivers a level of success for them, the family, and actually the work that they have decided to ply their trade in. So I think that's why I asked that question, because I do get that a lot in a lot of big businesses. You do see some CEOs and you think they're not really people, are they? And they don't, and they pay lip service to the people are the critical element of this company, but they don't do anything about it. And invariably, you do start to see, even though they're successful, you do see a lot of turnover in those sort of organizations.
Absolutely. There's a concept of exponential growth, right? So I'd rather talk about exponential growth than what success is and how to be successful. I want to know how to grow exponentially. And exponential growth really starts with, seeing to your needs and to how you feel and how you thrive, so that your family and your close ones can also reap the benefits and enjoy the fruits of your harvest and of your service and the things that you're doing in the world that are fulfilling. But then exponential growth is, so how can I apply that into a greater scale so the community can benefit of my service? So my life is of service to the community. Yes, my life is of service to myself and to my family, to my loved one, to my close ones. Let's grow exponentially. How can I have that impact on the community? Right? Okay, great. I've done that. I've grown. Now my life is of meaning to the community. Now, how can I make my life of meaning to the world? Right? So how do I grow exponentially is what I'm interested in.
I noticed that on a lot of bios, you put that you're on a mission to turn millions of passionate business owners, entrepreneurs, experts into fearless warriors that want to serve their tribe more powerfully than ever with clarity, confidence, and purpose. So tell me a bit more about the mission, because it's a very powerful term, a mission. I think everyone should have one, actually.
As you know, as coaches, I see coaches as light workers in the world. If somebody has trained to become a coach, has gone through the path of becoming a coach of something, they have gone through something in their lives personally, and they want to give back to the community. But sometimes they lack the focus and the clarity on who exactly their tribe is and what exactly they're doing to make that service more powerful, and not just showers, right? Or you want an impact. So my mission is to help these people create better solutions so that they in turn can have that impact on their people, on their tribe. But that involves knowing who they are as coaches, because coaching is an art. Yes, you can have a skill. That's what we learn in training in coaching school. They give us a skill. But so what? When you go out there in the deep blue ocean and it's so deep, it's so wide, like, okay, so where am I swimming to now? That's how I felt when I was a freshly baked coach over now 5 years ago. You are in this ocean and you're like, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to have an impact. I want to change things. But like, where do I start? It's so huge. I'm confused. Do I go this way? That's where the shiny things are. I once thought maybe in organizations, I could help managers become better or unlock the potential of their teams. That's the mentality that I had. But you know what? There are other coaches for that. That wasn't my story. I was a teacher. I was with the children on the floor, creating, having fun, laughing. I wasn't a corporate girl. I wasn't, even though I can get results. Yeah, give me somebody in front of me who has an issue, who has a goal to achieve. I can help them. But that wasn't my story. There are great coaches who've gone through the corporate world and now they want to go back and make a difference and help because they've been through that. My story is a bit different. So I'm helping other coaches who want to make a difference in the world, in their tribe, and if that means in organizations, if that means in communities or wherever. So it's a mission because there needs to be a big change in the world, and we need more people who can lead the way. But they need their weapons, they need their solutions. I call it that Wakanda spear. And we all have different types of spears that deal with different problems, right? Or deal with different monsters or different enemies or whatever you want to call it. So we create spears, or we create these weapons in the form of solutions that address these pain points. So it is a mission because the more people I work with and the more solutions we create, the ripple effect grows. And yes, that is what I am all about. And that's why I'm a coach's coach.
And it's good to see the passion, because I think that you're trying to impassion other people. So the passion that you show rubs off on people invariably. And you talk about, finding your gold dust. Just talk to me a bit more about that. What is it? What is the gold dust? What is it you're looking for?
So the gold comes, first of all, from Ghana. We used to be called the Gold Coast.
Yes.
back a bit of history here. We used to be called the Gold Coast, right? And the shores were glittering with gold, and they would see it from afar, the ships, and they were so intrigued by this gold, and they would come into the land and so on. Anyway, that's where I like the word gold and gold dust, and from the word Gold Coast. Now, the gold dust effect has a history of evolution. I used to call it the gold mine. That was the inner world. A gold mine. That's your gold mine. Within, there is so many treasures, right? So from that perception, that was about 4 years ago, I used to blog for the Huffington Post UK, and I was known as a gold mine treasure. So the gold was always in my head, and that evolved. And when I started working with coaches, unlocking their potential and packaging their skills and their knowledge and their passion and their stories into this solid, structured program, that essence was the gold dust. And it came upon me just like a vision. I was like, the gold dust, that's it. It's amazing how these things just come upon you, and you know that is a sign that you're on the right path when these things just come to you and you feel so inspired, like this is what I've been waiting for. So the gold dust is certainly all the knowledge, you hold within you, the stories that you have packed in a box and buried in the ground for nobody to hear again. Those need to be unearthed and brought forth, because then your coaching becomes an art. You use your stories, your forgotten stories, your triumphs, your failures, to now use your skills as a coach to make an impact.
Very powerful. So all those invaluable lessons that you learn, teach, bring forward, what would you say is your biggest learning in all the start times you've done it?
My biggest learning. Wow. There's no greater feeling than to be yourself. It's freeing. It's freedom. You feel so free. It's like, let me give an example. You know, I'm so versatile in the way I show up, right? Somebody would say, Veronica, your branding needs to be on point. Your branding needs to be, okay, you don't need to kind of have this colors, or, you know, you show up as this person, that's your brand. I think maybe my brand is like I'm everything. I don't know. I can be funny. I can be playful. I can be quite serious. I can be, you know, look as professional as anybody else. I can look like a little girl, like anything else. And I really don't care, because that's just me. So I think for everybody, just be yourself. And that's a cliche, you know, we hear that a lot, Hakeem, but I cannot stress how powerful that is, what to be yourself, and be yourself without any fear, because that way you act as a natural filter. You attract your tribe, and you filter out anybody else who isn't supposed to be in that energy field. People fear that judgment. What if I show up as this? What if I start dancing? Then what are they going to think about me? Is that professional? Well, I dance, and I always have, in Africa, we communicate through dance. So that's me. I'm just being me. And each dance has a message behind it in my post. So I communicate through dance as well. And that's a way of just bringing a piece of me into the way I show up, right? Because it is a part of me.
And have you always been like that? Or is that something that you've learnt over a period of time?
To be myself?
Yes.
Oh, Hakeem, back in Poland, I used to live somebody else's dream and somebody else's expectation of who I should or shouldn't be. And when I was over 10 years ago standing in front of a pawnbroker's shop after our two companies had gone bankrupt, that was the moment I realized that, Veronica, what on earth are you doing? Confined to the bars of old stories and fears and limitations, and everything else was just caged, but she was always there. And everybody has that fearless warrior that wants to be unleashed. And the moment you hear that voice, what are you doing? Is this what you want? To listen to it, please.
Yeah, definitely.
And answer it. Yes, because you think it's a rhetorical question. You don't answer it. We never really answer the question. If they ask, so when you hear, oh, who are you to speak up? You don't answer that question, right?
Yeah.
Wait, let me answer that question. Who I am this, and that, and then you answer the question, kind of. So, yeah. It's the fearless warrior. So when you say, was I always like that? No. And when you really start unleashing that fearless warrior, it means being yourself. It means going back to when you were a little child, because those are the moments we're the most ourselves. Really. Those were the moments we were most ourselves. So notice what you loved doing as a kid. I always danced back in school. Any talent show, Veronica was there. I wasn't the most academic, but I was the most.
I find that so hard to believe, Veronica.
You know, so bringing that piece of me back, that playful, creative, curious dancer was part of me, and I was always dancing in the comfort of my own home, and that relaxed me, that allowed me to settle the thoughts or the fears or whatever I was experiencing. Because when you're dancing, you don't really think.
It's very interesting, actually, because someone who should remain nameless messaged me the other day and they said, oh, you strike me as a person who doesn't suffer from motivation issues. And then it was quite a long message, and it's basically around, I'm not feeling very motivated at the moment, you know, because we can't get out, we're stuck in the office, everyone's not feeling it, you know, have you got any advice? And actually one of the things I said was, I'm sure you do salsa dance, not you, not Veronica, but this lady. I said, I'm sure you do salsa dancing. have you done any of that at the moment? I know you can't do physical concerts. I know you can't go out to places. I said, but even if you're just dancing in your house. And she went, yeah, that's a good point. I haven't done any salsa dancing for about 6 months. And you're like, well, that's very much part of you as a person.
Absolutely.
So if you're clothing off parts of you that make you feel good, it's not surprising you're not motivated, you're not happy, things aren't going as you want them to do. So I think it is critical that you do the things that make you feel good. However, other people may perceive it, because I'm a great believer in that. I'm not saying that I just ignore what people think, but I generally do what I think is good for me. I don't want to harm anybody else, so I'm hoping that what's good for me is not bad for somebody else, which is not.
Yes, you wouldn't drink any poison, would you?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's a real key point, because I think lots of people are not comfortable with being themselves. And actually, in business, when I've seen teams that are underperforming, a lot of that is around people in there, as you said, living somebody else's life. Oh, I've got to do this because that's what's expected me, and I've got to behave like this, rather than actually, if you were yourself, you would probably start just feeling more relaxed. If you're feeling more relaxed, funnily enough, people, as you said, gravitate towards you more. You're much more confident in what you're saying and how you're saying it, because you're being yourself. You're not putting on an image, and you're not having to try and remember, oh, what did I say then and how did I do it? Just being yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask a question. This is just a nosy question, actually, because I know you had a spot on Jamaican TV morning show, and when I saw it, I thought, how did she get on there? So how did you get on there?
Yes. Oh, and that is the power of showing up online. That is the power of building your visibility. That is the power of being yourself. That is the power of showing up. And that is the power of networking. That is the power of clarity and focus. You see, when you have that clarity in who you are, you have to focus on what you're offering and how you show up. People are drawn to that. And I got that show because I showed up. She was a follower of mine. She was, connected to me. And I think I did a dance video with a message to it, and she totally loved it. And as an individual, she just reached out. It's like, oh, there's this show. I would love to have you. And that's how it ended up. So with the clients I work with, when they start having clarity in their programs and the courses that they're creating, they have clarity on their messaging and how they show up, they start getting invited to podcasts. They start getting, invited to different interviews or lives or different things that they never would have had if they hadn't showed up as they were. So answering the question, it's the power of visibility and showing up consistently.
I noticed that on your YouTube channel, because I was interested, because when you set the YouTube channel, you said you've made a promise to yourself that you have to be consistent.
Yes.
So that almost made me think, so are you not always consistent? Is that an issue that you normally have? And you've basically said no.
Absolutely. There are things and projects that I have taken up that I never followed through. I used to have back in Poland, I used to design T-shirts. Back in Poland, and it was going well. I would be on different fairs and different shows, different events, and I'd be selling my T-shirts. I never really, pulled off that. After a while, like, I never really, we stayed consistent, and I never really grew that. I loved graphic designing. We used to have a web developing company back in Poland. I was a self-taught Adobe Photoshop Illustrator, and I used to love graphic designing, and it was something that I was doing, but then I didn't follow up through, so it never really grew, right? So yeah, if there's something that I feel I'm not committed to, it usually ends up with a dry fire, if I can say. You're energized and excited in the middle and the beginning, and then the fire kind of goes cold, and then you stop it. So I have made myself a promise. If something is important to me and it means something to me and it impacts in a way that it feels good for me, then yes. So the YouTube is an extension of my impact, right? And I wanted to stay true to that and consistent. So I had to make myself that promise, because I know myself. If I don't, for example, with my coaching, it was a moment in my life where I said, you know what, Veronica, you need to set yourself free. My marriage back then, 4 years ago, was already on the rocks. I was dependent on him. And I was like, no, you need to free yourself, because I felt so stuck and trapped.
Okay.
And I made myself a promise. This is going to work. I'm not going to be one of the 80% or 85 or 90% of coaches who don't make it, because that's the truth.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy. It takes consistency. And the consistency involves growth and mistakes and learning and evolving and being flexible and learning who and where, what exactly are you meant here to do. And that's where the consistency comes in.
So on that basis, so what are the biggest challenges that you see in individuals or businesses when it comes to shifting or changing that mindset?
The mindset of?
The individual. So in an individual, you're working with lots of coaches to obviously change the mindset, help them change other people's mindsets. In businesses.
There are two things.
Yeah.
So I work with coaches and I help them, coaches and consultants and creatives, really, I help them create an online training course. Yeah. But that is much more than just the framework and the curriculum. It starts with the unearthing of the gold dust, right? The tilling of the soil, because there's so much that has been forgotten. And they think they have this idea for a course, but the truth is they haven't really unearthed that gold dust. So they don't have the clarity in exactly what it is. So that's one thing. And the deep diving coaching is they don't necessarily have to be coaches. They can be all entrepreneurs on their own and other service-based business owners, and they're not looking to create courses. They just want a deep diver to dive deeper because they know that they have so many blocks and they know that they're not living up to their full potential. So when I look at looking at your question, meaning what is the most challenging thing in both worlds? Lack of clarity. Yes, ultimately, and that's a huge word. What does that mean? Lack of clarity in different areas on who they are, right? Or who their ideal clients are, who their tribe is. And I know that pain. If you're struggling in your business, you're not getting the clients that you want, or you're not getting the clients that you love to work with, it's because you don't have clarity on your solution and your tribe. And we look in all the outer, look for the answers everywhere, but not in the most obvious place, within. They say all the treasures are hidden within. Why? Because nobody can steal it.
That is a very thought-provoking statement.
Nobody can steal. Yeah, well, if I'm not talking about stealing an idea or something, no, that, right? Yeah. But all the answers are hidden. They say they're hidden, and you look for them outside, everywhere, somewhere, somebody else's backyard or somebody else's, field. The treasures are all within us, and if only we pause for a minute to really sit with ourselves and unearth that, and unpack that, unravel that, and find the answers within, because the tribe is always within you. Oh, I had to hear this like 1,000 times before I got it. And I know many people will hear me and they will just hear me and they will listen, but they won't get it.
And I think, because I try to say this to my children all the time, because when it's very easy when you're young and impressionable that things can happen, and it's like, oh, I'm no good at this, and I'm no good. And the story I always tell them is, because people always say I'm no good at maths, and I was exactly that person until I was about 14, 15. I didn't really try at school because I just thought I'm no good at maths. And I don't know what happened, but well, I do know what happened. I was sick and tired of people reading out results, and I was thinking, oh bloody, I'm on the bottom again. And all of a sudden, I just thought to myself, actually, if they can do it, they're human beings. And having spoken to them, they don't seem to be any more intelligent than I am. So what's the reason? Why have I told myself this story that I cannot do maths? I just can't do it. And all of a sudden, I just thought, actually, I want to start working. And my results, I remember the next year when I had my exam and people read out the results, they're like, I thought you were rubbish at maths. And I said, so did I. But I just decided.
I'm great.
Yeah, I just decided I'm going to work. And then maths became, I then went on to do maths at A level. I did it at university. And and that really showed me the power of what you're talking about. Actually, it's within, because no one said it to me. And actually, prior to that, my dad could have said it, my mum could have said it. I didn't believe it. I just thought, I'm no good at maths. That's just the way it is. And it's until I said to myself, actually, let me see if I really am bad at maths. And what can I do to change my attitude, my mentality, and actually obviously do some work, which helped. And that actually set me on a path where I'm not going to say I thought I could do absolutely everything, because there's physical capabilities. I mean, I'm not going to be
anything that matters to you.
Yes. That's really what set me on a path to do all the things that I've done since then. Was actually there's nothing that should prevent me from doing what I want to do. And whatever anybody says, anyone thinks, I'm going to try it. And actually, if it doesn't work, I don't care, because I've tried it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed trying it, and I'll just do something else. So I don't get bogged down with that, which I think a lot of people do. With I don't want to do it because if I fail, what is going to happen? And as you said, actually, if I succeed,
then what?
Oh my God, I want to cope with that.
Yes, and that's another thing, right? They feel the pressure and that the expectation to keep those standards, and can I really do it? But that's the association, and unfortunately the association with success is it's so pressurizing. What if we change that perception, right, and made it more of a different emotion, and maybe we would see success differently?
I hope so. So I think that's a perfect note on which to finish. So I want to thank you very much for your time, Veronica. It's been enlightening, it's been illuminating, and I'm hoping that anyone who watches this and listens to it, because it'll be podcast as well as video, find it very, very useful. And I'll put links to your LinkedIn page and all your associated social media and all the stuff that you're doing, because Veronica is exceptionally active. I think that if you are creating a course and struggling to create a course, and even if you don't think you're struggling to create a course, I would suggest that you get into contact with Veronica, because she has a real unique way of working with people, looking at what they do and repurposing. And I'm not talking about just repurposing materials, repurposing your brain to actually think about what you're doing.
And if you know that you have this gold dust and you want to use it to make a difference in the world, that's what I do.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Akeem. It's been a true pleasure, and it's so fun. And I love the questions, very provoking, and it definitely got me thinking deeper. I like deep thinkers as well.